Hello and welcome to another edition of Ace Fairy Tales with Elizabeth. Sorry I didn't manage to do one last week. It was a bank holiday in the UK and then I had a family funeral and other things, and I also went to Pride for the first time, which was quite exciting. And this week I'm taking part in a Twitter pitch fest, so it's just going to be a short one today, and I'm doing it outside in my garden with the plants and the trees and the cat that's just coming into focus there, the cat that's just stealing the show. She's called Sutika, by the way, in case you're wondering. It's very appropriate because I'm going to talk about one that's actually a Greek myth rather than a fairy tale as such, and that is the story of Daphne and Apollo. And here they are on the front of Ovid's Metamorphoses. This is a very famous sculpture of Daphne and Apollo. And if you're not familiar with Ovid's Metamorphoses, it is a text originally in Latin. I did not read it in Latin, I read it in translation. First studied it at university as part of classical literature in translation at the University of Leeds. Thank you, Leeds. Yes, originally in Latin by a Roman poet called Ovid. And unlike a lot of epics which are a big massive quest about a person like Odysseus or Achilles or whoever, this is actually a series of interconnected stories of transformation that takes you from the creation of the world to the creation of the Roman Empire. So it's a fairly big spread, but it's just all these different stories from mythology about transformations, mostly where people transform into animals and plants, or gods transform themselves into the guise of, you know, swans and bulls and showers of gold, mostly for the purpose of making children with the daughters of men. For some strange reason, everyone wants a big rain of gold coins to fall on them, not. So that's the Metamorphoses, and I always liked it as soon as I read it, and there's a few stories in here that always really connected with me before I even knew that I was Ace, and probably helped me to try and understand something of that in me, and Daphne and Apollo was one of them. So if you don't know the story of Daphne and Apollo, very quickly, Daphne is a nymph of the wood, and the god Apollo either falls in love with her or just desires her. He's generally thought of as god of the sun, but also as a god of music and poetry. He's often depicted with a lyre as in a harp, not as in a lyre who runs on fire. Just don't mind the cat. Yeah, and so he's anyway, he's a god. He desires this nymph. He chases after her to have sex with her, and she does not want this, so she pleads with her father, the river god, to take pity on her, and he turns her into a tree. So just at the moment that Apollo catches up with her and he thinks he's caught her to have his way with her, you can see from the statue here it's shown her to begin to transform. Her fingers are beginning to turn into leaves, and she turns into a tree, which is a laurel tree, and this becomes the wreath of Apollo and the wreath, of course, of the Roman Empress. So it kind of explains that and why Apollo loves that wreath, but it's also like a really powerful symbol, and I don't think I really need to explain too much about why this seems like an ace symbol. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, really, and it's a story that I've written about on more than one occasion. I've written about it, this one, I can't remember offhand which online magazine it is, but I'll try to link it because it was part of a Daphne competition, and one of my stories about Daphne is on there. I think it's still on there. And there's another story which first appeared in one of the Forgotten the Fantastical anthologies, which is in my Asexual Fairy Tales book, and it's more it's not so much a retelling of Daphne as it uses the story of Daphne and combines it with other fairy tales such as the Pied Piper of Hamelin, if that intrigues you. How would you combine the two to tell a really kind of ace positive story, the most ace positive story really in my Asexual Fairy Tale collection. So if that whets your appetite and you don't know what it is already, then look forward to that. Again, I will put the links on here. I hope some of you are looking forward to the book coming out. We've had the interior proofs and the day is drawing nearer. So I will see you again another time for more Ace Fairy Tales. Bye!